I'm Allison. Thank you for joining me for Where I'm From 182 with Signe. What have you been reading? Hold on while I open my Kindle. I have been reading, or I read, Real Americans by Rachel Kong on my Kindle on a plane, which I enjoy very much reading. To pass the time, Real Americans. Um, Signe, I approved your request. I will also invite you. Um, and hopefully one of these will work. Yes, it did. Hello. How
Hey,
are you?
I am well. I'm trying to organize my camera here, but I think I'll just have to hold it.
Yeah, I have a stand because otherwise it's a little tricky trying to. I have a few times balanced it, but then I'm a little anxious that it's going to go
Well, I have a way to do it if it was horizontal, but the
right.
frame won't shift. So I will just hold on. I'm not quite the professional you are.
Yeah, well, this is 182, so I had to sort of embrace like, oh, I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to splurge on a stand. And how are you? You're in Colorado right now, right?
I am. I'm an evergreen. Yes, I unfortunately have had many deaths in my family,
I'm
and
sorry.
yeah, and most recently my mom passed, and so I'm back in Colorado to help with that. But it's also nice to come back home,
Yeah.
even though home has been very many places. This is still the origin, the
Right.
original home. Yeah.
And is it the longest you've lived somewhere?
Um, yeah, I mean, for the first 24 years, I've lived in Colorado, and since then, I've lived
Yeah.
elsewhere. So I'm 61. So, 40 years have been abroad and around. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But, and I think it's interesting that you are from Boulder.
I went to high school in Boulder. Yep. I went to
Yeah,
Boulder High.
yeah. And I went to university in
Oh, you
Boulder.
did?
And,
Yeah. Well.
yeah. And then you had recently Stacy Greason on,
Hmm.
who is also from Evergreen.
Oh, I don't think I knew that. I'm actually going hiking with her in a few weeks. So
Okay.
because
Yeah.
she's here now.
Yeah.
We're sort of near each
Oh,
other.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we graduated
Did
in the same
she
high
really?
school class. Yeah. It was kind of funny. Yeah.
That's a really small world thing. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and CU is like down the street from Boulder
Yeah.
High. Like for real. We used this pool there for our swim team. So
Yeah.
it was,
I,
I didn't go
I'm,
to CU, but lots of
yeah.
people did.
I'm actually driving up there today to pick up some glasses. I still do some of my medical stuff in the States,
Yeah.
but eventually, yeah.
It's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful place. And I still, I mean, I love Colorado. It's
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Colorado, as I said, is like home. There's something about the
Yeah.
dry um, air and the soil. It's not as lush and moist as like New England or the Northwest or Norway for that matter. It
Yeah.
has kind of arid, pine needly,
Also,
sandy ground. So, yeah,
it's
I
high desert, right?
yeah, and
Hmm.
all the smells that go with that. That's and the blue spruces. I think Evergreen is known as the blue spruce
Is
capital. I think
it
they,
really? Oh, I
yeah,
love
well,
blue
I think they
spruce.
gave themselves that name. But
Yeah, fair.
just so they had a postcard saying, but there are a lot of blue spruce, and I'm very fond of blue spruce.
Me too.
Yeah.
Actually, when we moved to Boulder from Southern California, which is where I am again, we planted one in our front yard and it was, I don't know, 4 or 5 feet. Now it's
Yeah.
like, I mean, it's a giant. Um, and so I'll look on, Google Maps at the tree. I don't really
Yeah.
care about the house, but it is fun to see what it's done in the
Yeah.
past for almost 40 years,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. It's like I remember it must have been fourth grade, they had this program where you planted a sapling, pine tree or something.
Yeah.
And now, if we were to go back and find where we planted it, it'd probably be very impressive.
Yeah. It, it, it takes patience, but they reward your patience.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. And it kind of makes you times it's a way to like
Yeah.
experience time in multiple ways. Yeah.
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 I like I've said here many times, I love the ocean and mountains and all of it because I like feeling small.
Yeah.
Some people that freaks them out, not me. I like feeling like, oh, we're just a blip. Like,
Yeah.
it's important what we do with that, of
You're
course,
right.
but it takes some of the anxiety out of it
That's
for
true.
me.
That in a really starlit sky
Mm-hmm.
can be very impressive and humbling.
Mm-hmm.
But you should come to Norway then because you have the ocean that meets the fjords, so you get the height and the ocean all together in
I
one.
would love to.
Yeah.
I would love to. It seems like a place that I would really enjoy.
Yeah. Well,
Scandinavia. Yeah.
just reach out when you find yourself
Okay.
there, and I will. In case people are watching this, I actually live in Oslo, Norway, so but Colorado is my origin home.
And where your poem is about, mostly.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's my poem. It's an interesting prompt because you could go so many different ways with it, but the way that I felt called to was to talk about nature because I've lived many different places in the world, and even though I might not have known the language or quite understood the culture, there is seemingly a way to feel at home through nature. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
I think I feel similarly when I travel too. I want to if you're in a place where there is nature, but it's everywhere.
Mm,
I mean, it's mostly
yeah.
everywhere. Something that speaks. Um, well, do you want to read your poem?
Yeah, I could do that. Let me pull it up on the laptop here. Okay. Um, all right. And I want to thank you for giving me a chance to participate with this
Yes, my
theme.
pleasure.
Yeah. So I am from poem, and I'm actually going to put my glasses on so
Okay,
I
makes sense.
can see a little bit
Yeah.
better. Um, I am from neighboring national forest and faint footpaths that only my child-sized feet knew how to find. I am from knowing. I am from that innate wisdom held by the soles of my feet to go be in nature. Between the fallen pine trees with clusters of columbines and the sweeping blue spruce boughs, I make my way with a book. I am from my own Scholastic's early reader program called Escape Your Reality. Thimble Summer, Charlotte's Web, and Escape from Witch Mountain were favorites of the trembling aspens reading over my shoulder, yet insisting I read louder. I am from trees and dappling sunlight. I am from innocence. I am from bologna and mustard sandwiches while watching Star Trek, I Dream of Jeanie, and Gilligan Island reruns. I am from Latch Key Kids and all the unchecked drama that could be mistaken for The Lord of the Flies. I am from my childhood home's stairwell landing, spying on Masterpiece Theater over my parents' heads, enchanted with the last of the Mohegans instead of being in bed. I am from magic and imagination. I am from the Rocky Mountains, a young range of pushed-up rock that runs like scar tissue between two countries and divides a continent's waterways. I am from the West, though all the local waters run east, and that is the direction in which my life has flowed. I am from New England's mighty oak, Norway's Grand Tre, Azerbaijan's pomegranate and fig trees, Angola's majestic babao trees, and finally Australia's bottleneck gum, wattle, and frangipani trees. I am from roots and shoots that connect to the earth. I am from my husband's country of Norway, to which I've returned. Now I am from the land of fjords and ice-age carved mountains and valleys. I am from birches twisted not from altitude, but from the depths of snowfalls. I am from the midnight sun and its playful invitation to stay up and forget the night. I am from the darkness of winter and its maddening effect on my sense of light. I am from Norse mythology and Viking lore. I am from footpaths made by roaming sheep and wild reindeer. I am from the boulders I lean against, instead of trees, while plucking blueberries, cranberries, and the most enigmatic berry of them all, cloudberries, whose name makes me look up at the sky and wonder and remember, I am from mystery. I am from stars. Thank you.
That
Yeah.
was so beautiful.
Well,
I,
thank you.
yeah. I think particularly because I've lived in Colorado, but how I don't know, a lot of it really hit me. But being from the West, but all the waters flow east,
Yeah.
it's really,
Yeah.
um, and that's the way you flowed. That was just a beautiful turn there.
Yeah. Thank you. It was one of those things that, the wisdom comes out and you don't really plan for it, but then
Yeah.
you write it on the page and then you're like, wow, that actually is quite poetic.
Isn't that the best? I just love that feeling when I surprise. It's been a while since I've written because life is just
Yeah.
happening, and I miss that. That's what
Yeah.
I miss. That.
Yeah. So that's why I was very grateful for you, because I haven't been writing very much just because of my life at
Mm-hmm.
the moment. And when you, gave me this invitation, I was like, oh, that could be fun, and it kind of brought back that, sparkle of, what would I say? And then get out of the way and see what comes out. And, the idea of when I started to think about it, I really have always gone east until
Yeah.
we hit Australia and then we've returned back to Norway. So, and now I'm in Colorado, so maybe I'm flowing west now. Yeah.
Yeah, and I loved all the trees and the places that you've lived, and also Masterpiece Theater. The little things that I. It's such a gift to me because I think most of us, well, wish we remembered more, or think we wish we remembered more. But I think this prompt shows us that we do
Mm.
remember so much often, and listening to people's poems reminds me like of Masterpiece Theater,
Mm.
and for me it was Brideshead Revisited that was on,
Okay. Yeah.
and I remember, um, you know, peeking in, and I think there was full frontal nudity, and that was like very,
Yeah.
in that moment, and male full
Yeah.
frontal
Yeah.
nudity, to be clear, um, and I Dream of Jeanie, and all those shows that were reruns that felt very comforting.
Right. Right. Like there was a
Mm-hmm.
routine, get off the
Mm-hmm.
bus, you make yourself a snack,
Yeah.
and then you debrief in front of reruns. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, it's funny too, because as I was writing that, I realized what a consumer I was early on for whether it was reading or TV, and it was like feeding me in a way. Even though that I was connected to nature, I think human nature was a little bit more. I was cautious around. I was a bit suspect of some of the motives I saw in people very young in life, and so I think watching these shows in a way, particularly like Spock in Star Trek, where he struggled too with human
Mm-hmm.
nature, and it kind of was a way of feeling a kinship when I didn't have that community as a young child.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think a lot of us felt that, and because I think the lexicon was fairly limited, right? There just weren't that many offerings. So I think we shared
Yeah.
them, where now it's not, it doesn't operate in the same way. I also, the little footpaths, I just, that really, because I'm sure you feel similarly when you're out and you see one, it's like,
Mm.
oh, that's the way. Someone
Mm.
has traveled this way before, or
Yeah.
something, you
Yeah.
know. Um, and so that's the way, especially if you're near water, which just happened. I was visiting a friend in North Carolina a couple weeks ago, and I went out and wandered around, and that happened to me. And oh, okay, that's the way. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, and I do that a lot too still in Norway, because there are so many animal paths,
Yeah.
and some will fade out, and then you're like, okay, now where do I go? But I was up against trying to take a shortcut to our house, and somebody said, oh, there's a path along the coast. And I found it, and it truly was against the coast, because I was like, if this was high tide, I don't think I could find this path, so it's kind of the hidden little paths as well that you kind of delight in. Yeah.
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 And just the knowing that that there's a community that
Mm.
is traveling and wandering, and we may be
Mm.
alone in the moment, but we're not really alone. I think for me, it feels that sort of
Yeah.
unspoken.
Yeah, it definitely, that's a good way to put it, because like the knowing, um, it's like if you let your feet,
Mhm.
just like, letting your get out of the way and whatever words
Yeah,
come on
yeah,
the
yeah.
page, but if you're out in nature and letting your feet take the lead,
Yeah.
it's amazing where you could end up. Because I've done that quite a bit, and I'll find clearings that are just magical. And I don't know if I would necessarily have found it if I just hadn't just let myself kind of go on autopilot a little bit. It's like there's these magnetized areas in nature that just draw you to
Yeah.
it. And I am always in awe when those moments happen too.
Yeah. They're magic,
Yeah.
I think. Hmm.
Yeah. And do you have a lot of walking paths where you are?
Well, I mean, I'm in Los Angeles, but there
Yeah.
are, lots of, there's more open space here than a lot of cities. Obviously, it has been affected by the fires, a lot of
Yeah.
it. So it's now needs to be treated kindly. So it doesn't want people walking on it right now, but there are other areas. But yeah, you could, I mean, I, I walk a lot.
Mm.
I like to walk. I find it very regulating. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And it helps you. Yeah, I just think that's a great way to put it, regulating, circulating.
yeah, it's
Um,
just,
and it's remarkable. You go out with maybe something you're trying to solve or a
yeah,
problem you're worrying about, and by the end of your walk, you're like, okay, that wasn't such a big deal.
yeah,
Or now I know how to do that. Or, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And with writing too, if you have a
yeah,
question that you're sort of mulling, it helps me to just get out there and walk. And yeah, I also like walking around cities. I was in Nashville and there was something going on. Like some people riding bikes up a hill. So I just went and talked to some person I didn't know. And like when you're on foot, I don't know. It's just, I like it a lot.
yeah,
I
yeah,
enjoy it.
that's true. Yeah, because pedestrian lifestyle.
Yeah, which is funny. Me living in Los Angeles, obviously there's a lot of driving, but I do walk quite a bit. So
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
I think that's the difference between Norway and Colorado, or at least where we live. There's not a ton of public transportation here.
Mm-hmm.
You're really reliant on a car to transport you to the grocery
Yeah.
store or anything like that. And so you're walking on kind of country
Yeah.
roads. So you're still sharing it a bit with traffic, but traffic isn't crazy. But in Norway, there's so much public transportation and access to hiking trails. So I do appreciate the consciousness that's
Yeah.
gone in
Yeah.
the way that Norway designed
Yeah.
a livable habitat in a way that you can still be urban and rural at the same
Yeah.
time in a way. Yeah.
I think that's wonderful. That's the ideal.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it is. And I've lived in Houston for a period of time, and we came from Norway to Houston, and that
Oh,
was
that's a change.
a huge cultural change for us because it really was car
Yeah.
dependent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and our kids were used to walking to school, and now suddenly there's a school bus, and yeah, so I think it's interesting to go visit different places and see what their public transportation is like, because I think it says a lot about the consciousness of who's ever governing the area.
Yes, my kid is very into public transportation, so he'll enjoy this. He's a big advocate for public transportation and its importance.
Yeah, yeah, he
Mhm.
should go do a tour and then compare and contrast.
He would be happy to do that. Yeah. So, and it's a lovely thing. I think, especially, I mean, for the people who live there, but when you do visit a city, it's cool to take the public transportation and see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have, especially if you don't know the language, it becomes what is your skill in deciphering
Mhm.
a map and
Oh
all
gosh,
of that.
not thumbs up. I don't. I mean,
Somebody
yes, thumbs
with
up, but I don't love that it does that for me without me consenting.
yeah, I figure somebody agreed.
Yeah, I've only been a few places where I didn't use the alphabet was different, and that was a real challenge for me then to try to decipher public transit. Like, oh, I can't even like kind of, and this was before AI and
Yeah,
iPhones and all of that. Like, okay, I'm gonna try my best to match the little
yeah,
map I have to the sign to, it's, I don't know.
yeah. No, I was just in Athens last
Well, that's
May.
where I was when that happened.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, and we were trying to get to the airport from one of the sites. And, we ended up having to ask somebody because even though we had our iPhones and
Really?
the,
Oh, that's
yeah,
interesting.
but
Hmm.
we ended up still having to ask somebody. But it is a sense of accomplishment, you
Hmm.
know, to do it, to get from A to B in a foreign place. And it's part of
Yes.
the,
Yes.
yeah.
Um, well, anything else about the writing experience or
Um,
anything else you want to share before we wrap up?
well, I do, even though I'm not writing as much as I would like to right now, I do really honor it as a tool for self-awareness. And I think in today's world, self-awareness goes a long way for bringing in empathy and connection. And so, as somebody, I like to point out that, there's journaling and you can journal and you'll find that you can journal on the same thing over and over again. It's like the story you tell your friend, and your friend is so gracious they'll listen to it again, even though it's the same story. And, ending
Hmm.
hasn't changed.
Hmm.
But I do find that journaling can give you an opportunity to hear yourself because I think real healing starts when you can hear yourself. And that's when you can make a change because you want a different ending. You don't want to be stuck in this narrative. And so, for people who do use journaling, just be aware that it's a tool, but it's also you have to actively engage it to hear your own narrative and see if this is indeed the story you want to live. So,
Yeah.
I guess that's what I would
Yeah.
add.
I think I've never been a journaler. But I always look at people and like think, oh, that seems great. That must be really cool to be able to look back and see what you thought. But I mean, little notes here and there, but I don't know. I've never.
Well, and I'm a weird journaling. Well, not weird, but uh, I journal, but I don't, and I might review a little bit the
Hmm.
most stuff. And unless it's like something I feel that I channeled wisdom out the wazoo and I want to preserve it, I
Hmm.
mostly just, I dump my journals every year.
Oh, do
So,
you? So you don't
yeah,
have them
because
as like a
no,
archive of your. Mhm.
because my dad saved his when he passed. I got to read some of them, and some of them were, it was nice for me to see sing,
Hmm.
but a lot of it was a lot of woundedness
Yeah.
that he never really
Hmm.
resolved. And it wasn't, I didn't need to read that. That was his personal
Hmm.
journey. I don't think my kids will, have the patience to read through my journals because if I do value something I've written, I pull it out and I put it in a
Hmm. Hmm.
form.
Hmm.
But the journaling for the self awareness and for the self healing, that's intimate and that's for me. And I don't
Yeah.
need to read
Yeah.
that.
No, I get
Mm.
that. I mean, especially with all the moving too that you've done, that would be a challenge.
Yeah.
Um, but when I talked to Georgella one time, she's in her office and it's just, shelves of her journals because she's always been in Kentucky. And when I see that, I think like, oh, I guess I could have, but it's not me,
No.
and we just sort of at some point, it's helpful to just accept who we are and what we
Yeah.
love, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to do that.
Well,
That's,
and like we have a cabin, and it's very traditional in Norwegian cabins that you have a hittebook, which is a cabin book.
yeah.
And so anytime you stay, even yourself or a guest, you always write in it, sentiments of what,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think that's fun because you get to go back and see what people did,
Yeah.
or, especially at Christmas time when everything's so much about the food, there'll be people who are writing their menus out.
Oh,
So, yeah,
that's sweet.
that's fine. But, well, thank you again,
Thank
Alice.
you.
I know that we've kind of seen each other through different programs or groups.
Yes.
So it was really nice to talk to you face to
Same.
face.
I'm so glad that you took the time to join me and write a poem, and because I know it's an ask and I know you have a lot going on. So I really appreciate it. It was lovely.
Yeah, thank you so much. All
Okay.
right. Well, till we see again.
Exactly. Okay. Bye.
Bye.